Hey everyone, Blizzard just released a very interesting blog post. I think one of the first ones they've done of these, at least in a very long time, where they're talking about a lot of the changes that they're planning to make for the game. They're going to be adjusting how matchmaking works, how ranked works, how placement games work, how hero balance is going to work as well moving forward. So tons of stuff happening here. I'm going to go through it here with you guys, give you my thoughts on it, and give Blizzard my feedback as well. So yeah, let's dive into it with some matchmaking stuff at the start. Matchmaking at the start. First though, general feedback for Blizzard, 10 out of 10 that you're doing this. This is great. I think this sort of transparency is fantastic. So yeah, shout out on that. Hopefully you guys can continue doing that and doing more stuff along these lines. I think everyone will probably agree that understanding where Blizzard is at, what they're planning on doing, what their thought process is, makes stuff a lot more tolerable. That's been one of my criticisms with this season. It's like, okay, points, certainly for the Master and Grandmaster grind, points and the personal ranked adjustment stuff is so different from other seasons, and it's not really clear exactly how it works. That leaves you feeling very up in the air, kind of like, I don't know where I stand really, so that sucks. So transparency is great. All right, matchmaking stuff. Queue time versus match quality. Matchmaking in Heroes boils down to striking a balance between creating the best possible matches in terms of player skill and initiating games in a reasonable amount of time. Currently, the matchmaker is always seeking to make the best possible matches it can based on a set of criteria it uses to find equally skilled allies and opponents. The longer players wait in the queue, the looser these restrictions become in order to get players into a match as quickly as possible. Then they kind of define it a little bit more. The crucial thing here, though, given all your feedback, it's clear we've been favoring reducing queue times a little too much. Moving forward, we're going to harden these rules in order to enforce higher quality matches. As a result of the changes we plan to implement, higher skilled players may see longer queue times in exchange for higher quality matches. Personally, I'm a big fan of this. I think it's a great idea. I mean, we don't want to see 15 or 20 minute queues, obviously, but if it means, okay, instead of having a 5-minute queue and you get a bad game, you know, with players of all sorts of different skills, and from game to game, you're going from, like, certainly for higher level, like, in my experience, you can go from one game to playing with, like, GM number 1, like, literally GM number 1, to playing with someone that was Diamond last season. That's, it really disrupts your game flow to have teammates that are so radically different. If you can go from having 5-minute bad game to having 7 minutes or 8 minutes in queue and having a great game, I think that's good. So I'm happy with that. I mean, it's Hero League though. You're always going to have bad games. You know, games where stuff just doesn't work out, or someone DCs, or something horrible happens. So we don't want like 20-minute queues and then you have like a 15-minute stomp and you feel really bad. That would suck. But, you know, a little bit longer, cool. We're down with that. Or at least I'm down with that. And I think most people probably are as well. Rank decay. Let's talk about rank decay. So, your matchmaking rating, your MMR, is an internal numerical representation of your skill that's adjusted based on the outcome of the games you play. The value is most accurate when you regularly play within the current meta against other active members of the player base. When players take an extended break from the game or only play a few ranked games each season. Oh, placement games. Oh, placement games. It can create situations where a player's current skill no longer matches their MMR, if only temporarily. We've heard from those of you who feel it's unfair to be matched with players who are in this situation. To alleviate this, and to help improve the accuracy of a player's MMR and rank, we're working to institute both MMR and rank decay. Players who have not played any games for a while will have their MMR slowly adjusted to compensate. Likewise, players who do not regularly participate in a given season will see a decline in their rank points over time. All of this said, it's also very important to us the decay rate is not overly punishing, still working on the specifics of the decay system. Interested in hearing any feedback you might have. I was kind of curious, so I jumped over to League of Legends. I was like, how does decay work in League of Legends? This is how it works there. In Platinum, Diamond, and Master, and Challenger, all are subject to decay. In Platinum and Diamond, after 28 days of inactivity in any ranked queue, you begin losing rank points based on your current tier. Every 7 days after that, you'll use rank points until you play a match in that queue. Diamond players lose 50 each time they decay. Platinum players lose 35. Now, I don't know exactly how many points that is, how that balances out, but, you know, that's a rough idea there. Master and Challenger works differently. Each game you play is stored up as a banked game to a maximum of 10. each day 1 is removed from your reserves. So you play a bunch of games. If you don't play for 10 days, your bank games are all gone. When your bank games reach 0, you lose 100 points per day until you bank more games. Wins and losses both count. It just matters that you played. I think this is good. If you, I don't know, this is something like if you reach the bottom of your tier, you'll drop down. So yeah, and then decay doesn't occur for players in bronze, silver, or gold. I think this looks like a pretty good system as well. You know, don't punish players in bronze, silver, or gold. You know, they're newer to the game, or they're not as, you know, as skilled as other players. It can be a very frustrating experience when you're in those tiers anyway. So I think, you know, there's no need to punish those players at all. But certainly once you get Platinum, Diamond, Master, and then GM in HOTS, I think that's appropriate for decay. I like the idea of Platinum, Diamond. Okay, 28 days, then you start decaying. I think, you know, for Master and GM, I think this is fair as well. You need to be playing a lot more regularly, and the decay is a lot harsher. I think that's very fair. So yeah, I actually thought this was a great system just from an initial glance. So that would be my initial feedback. I'm like, okay, let's not punish players in bronze, silver, or gold. That's fine. But once we get, you know, Platinum, Diamond, definitely Master. Definitely Master. There should be decay. And I think the higher rank you are, the stricter it needs to be. I think that's only fair. You know, someone that was Master 3 seasons ago comes back to the game. It's totally different. The drafting is different. There are new heroes in the game that totally change the meta. It's just not good to have those players in the same games, at the same level of games that they were in there before. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I feel about that one. Performance-based matchmaking then. So PBM, system we introduced late last year, which aimed to improve your MMR accuracy by taking your individual performance into account when adjusting your MMR. Of course, they took it out then because that season was an absolute disaster. It was the season where we had, I think, a lot of people, myself, I think I had 1 placement game reset. I finished my placement games, then it was reset. I think some people had 2 resets. It was a disaster. But they're saying that it has nothing to do with that. I'm personally skeptical, but whatever. I mean, it's Blizzard's word, so what can you say? I think they intentionally, by implementing it, it broke something they didn't mean to. I think it did have something to do with it, though indirectly. That's just my theory, because why did that season break but none others? Don't know. Anyway, when we bring this feature back, we intend to add additional context about how point adjustments are determined. I think that's fantastic. I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about some stuff they don't mention here, but I love this. Extra info, extra context, explaining why and how. Yes. 10 out of 10. This should help you better understand how you're performing and where you can improve in the future. Keep an eye out on those, out for those details in the near future. So that's excellent to hear. And then this is very interesting. When performance-based matchmaking returns, it will no longer affect Grandmaster and Master League players. It will no longer affect these players. This has me a little bit concerned about the system, about how accurate and helpful it would really be if it can't actually account for how high level play goes. You know, if it can't actually account for that. And that was what we experienced. It was quite broken. It was quite broken. So that has me a little bit concerned. But like I said, I think over a good few games, I expect performance-based matchmaking should be helpful. And it should encourage players to try well, to try their best, and to try to improve. So yeah, I mean, I kind of, same as how it was before. I'm kind of like, all right, I'm cautiously optimistic about this system. I hope that it could be really helpful. I think it ought to be really helpful. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of happy though that it's not in GM and Master games, because I feel like ultimately when it really comes down to it, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this game that is just so hard for a computer algorithm to work out. That's so hard. Like, how do you account for, like, my perfect example that I always go back to is, you know, that ETC sitting in the perfect bush, being in that perfect position where he's getting great vision on the enemy team, getting great info, helps his teammates set up a trap, or that player that makes great shot calls on voice chat. How does the system, how does the computer identify that and acknowledge it? I don't think it can. So I don't think PBM can ever be perfect, but I think on the whole it should be helpful. Ranked play then. Got some big changes here to placement games, new seeding, and yeah, hero bans, all that stuff. Let's go through it. So placement matches. Placement matches were primarily intended as a way for us to gain more information about your skill level in the absence of previous match history. However, the more games you play during a season, the less necessary it becomes to reassess you at the start of the next. Excuse me. Going forward, those who play enough ranked games during the current season will only need to complete as little as one placement match when the next season begins. After completing your placement, you'll be placed based on your MMR at the end of the previous season. I think this is fine. Now, personally, I go a step further and go, why do you need to play why play one placement match? How does that have any relevance? So number one, we've already said that, okay, well, our computer algorithm can't work out for Master and GM. It can't work out how well you play in a given game. We can't quite figure that out for high levels. There's too much stuff going on there. So I don't get why we would need to have a game, because it's like, okay, you win the game or you lose the game. Like, it could be a 50-50, you know, and like, we're not really able to tell what impact you had on the game. So you might place differently based on one placement game. In my opinion, just place people straight into a rank. Just be like, okay, you were this rank last season. You know, you had this level MMR, this was your win ratio, this was your final rank, this was your highest rank. Bing bong bong. Sound effects, great. You're placing here, like whatever. There you go, boom. Great, you're in this rank now. Done. You don't need to do any placement games. I don't see why we need one. So just get rid of them for players that have played like 100 games in a season. Just be like, all right, you played 100 games? No placement games for you. You're just, boom, you're in this rank. There you go. Why not? That makes so much more sense to me. Speaking of new and returning players, though, this is important too. The first time a player steps into ranked play, we use the knowledge we have about their performance in other game modes as a general starting point for assessing their skill. We also do this if a player hasn't played ranked in a long time, and their MMR in other modes is now significantly different than their existing ranked MMR. Currently, players who enter ranked play for the first time or after a long absence can place as high as Diamond 3 after completing their placements. We recognize that being placed highly when a player is new to ranked can lead to some less than positive experiences if they lack some of the more nuanced game knowledge necessary for success in that league. As a result, new players can no longer place higher than Platinum 5 at the end of their placement matches going forward. Yes. Thank you, Blizzard. Additionally, we believe the introduction of MMR and rank decay will help account for players who take long breaks from ranked play. As such, these returning players will no longer be reseeded into placement based on their skill in other game modes. Yes, I think this is really good as well. So yeah, I this is what I think. I think if you've played, like, let's say 100 games, this is just off the top of my head, throwing this out there. If you've played 100 games in a season, no placement games for you, you just get placed back somewhere that's appropriate. Again, just work it out, Blizzard, based on, you know, your highest rating, your final rating, and your win rate, and your MMR. Just put it all together and then place people somewhere that's fair. And I think everyone would be cool with that. If you haven't played, then you do some, you know, maybe you do some placement games. Like, we could stick with the 10 placement games. I think the first time you're going into ranked, maybe 20 placement games would be appropriate. Maybe 10 is fine as well, I guess. I like the idea that you can't place higher than Platinum 5. I think that's fair because, like, it's just ridiculous that someone can have a really high win rate. Like, this is the thing. You can go into Quick Match, play a whole load of games with your friend, get really high Quick Match MMR because, like, you're playing legitimate comps. You know, you're pretty good players. You're playing together. Then you go in, let's say you get Diamond MMR in Quick Match. You jump into Hero League. You're playing a Diamond level play. You're solo queue. You're on your own. And it's like, you don't actually understand really the meta. You don't understand the draft. You don't understand how to play with other players at that level of play. You have no idea about rotations, about merc camp timing, about map objectives, nothing. You're totally out of your depth and you're ruining those games. I think that is just crazy. I think Platinum 5 is fine. I think Platinum 5 is fine because at that point, and that's also what I'm talking about, have MMR decay kind of start at Platinum 5, really. I think that's fine. Because there it's like, okay, in Platinum, we're not I don't think you should expect players to have mastered all those sort of things or, you know, be super highly skilled. I think you'd want players to have an idea of them, to be, you know, coming to terms with the basics, even maybe some advanced stuff by the time you get to Platinum. But yeah, I think that's okay. I think this is okay. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. Just get rid of the one placement game. There's no need for that at all. Hero bans and swaps. We're going to add a third ban for each team during drafts. We've been considering this addition for some time, wanted to wait until our hero roster grew to an appropriate size. We believe we've now reached that threshold, and adding a third ban should provide teams with another layer of strategy when choosing their heroes for a given match. We're currently planning to add this ban to the existing mid-ban phase rather than create an entirely new third phase. This will enable us to keep drafts moving quickly so that players get to the action. It also allows teams to use that additional mid-ban to react to the draft as it unfolds. Okay. Now, personally on this one, I'm not a massive fan of it being in the mid-ban phase. I like the idea a lot of having another ban, but personally, I would much prefer to see this in the first ban phase and make that ban phase quicker, okay? Have it like 30 seconds for each ban. Boom, 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 great stuff. Each team gets 2 bans, then we go into the things. Each team gets 1 mid-ban as well. My concern and the reason I feel that way is I think that if you have it being mid-bans, 2 mid-bans, so 1 ban at the start, then 2 mid-bans, it comes very, very powerfully. We gotta grab the OP heroes at the start. Okay, we can ban, each team can ban 1, then you wanna grab them quick. Alright, then we got the mid-ban phase, so all the other OP heroes are gonna be removed. And then we go from there. I think that's really not good. Whereas if they're in the first ban phase, it's like, alright, well 4 OP heroes get removed. Then, you know, there might be a couple left, but there's much more freedom then as we start actually choosing our heroes, to choose heroes based on team composition, to choose heroes that synergize well together, rather than just grabbing all the OP ones. And this is also my concern with having a second ban in the mid phase, is that you might grab a few heroes to create an interesting team comp, and then the mid ban phase comes along, boom, boom, 2 bans, and then a lot of the heroes that would make your team comp work are gone. So I think that would even go further into going again. Like, it just makes the problem even worse where, okay, we could try to create like a cool and synergized draft of heroes, but we've got this mid-ban phase, which is really bulked out, which could just disrupt that completely. So now there's even more incentive to just grab heroes that are overtuned and that are OP and that work in most circumstances. So that's my thoughts on that. I love the idea of a third ban. Really want to see it, though, in the first ban phase. Make it a little bit faster. In fact, you can even make the draft a little bit faster in general. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. Second, more nebulous, is the addition of a hero swap feature. We've seen a lot of mixed discussion on the topic in the community. There are many things to consider when introducing the system to Hero League, including increased draft time, complexity, and player conflict during the draft. Because of these complexities, hero swaps are lower on our priority list compared with some of the other improvements we've discussed today. Okay, that's a little bit disappointing for me. I'd quite like to see hero swaps be a thing. Even, you know, like a 20-minute phase at the end of the game, you know, swap your heroes, confirm, yes, I want to swap, okay. The thing that opens up, again, I think having top tier bans, like 2 bans at the start, helps this a lot. But certainly at the moment, certainly at the start of this season, I think it's gotten a bit better since then with the balance changes. But at the start, there were several heroes that were just bonkers overpowered. And it's like, we want to grab those as soon as possible. But our first player is, you know, he's a support main, and let's say he's a tank main, okay? And like Diablo and Garrosh got banned or something. So the really, really OP tanks are gone. You'd really rather be flexible and like pick a tank that counters what the enemy team is putting together, or pick something a little bit later. But he's a tank main, so he has to pick it now. And then we don't get the chance to pick someone who's really strong. So like at the start of the season, like Tracer, you know, Hanzo, Genji, that sort of stuff. So I think adding swaps would be quite nice for that. Of course, it does open up the the problem that there could be, you know, toxicity. Hey, you pick this hero for me. Oh yeah, I lied. I don't have the hero for you. I'm just going to pick you something stupid. Like, it opens up some opportunity for trolling and for conflict for sure. And does make drafting more complicated and more difficult. But I think it's probably a good idea in the long term. I'm okay with waiting a little bit longer, but I think it is something that we need in the game. I think it would be very helpful. Certainly to have it in Team League, at least, please. Certainly to have it in Team League, like, why not? You know, like someone might, you know, let's say someone picks Abathur, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll run my Grey main with that, fantastic. And then they ban Grey main, they take Grey main, and you're like, oh well, our Abathur player plays a really good Illidan, and like, I'm really good at Abathur, so it would be great if we could then like say, okay, well actually, no, you take the Abathur, and then I'll play my Illidan, you know, that sort of stuff. That would be great. So I'd like to see this brought in relatively soon. Doesn't need to be immediately, but soon. Test it in Team League, bring it to Hero League. I think it'd be fine. Yeah, I think it'd be fine. We're still exploring a few options. We consider alternative ideas like position swaps, in which players could rearrange their team's pick order. We've also considered simply using the same first come first serve pick method exists in Team League and custom games. We may bring some of these ideas to Unranked Draft as a test. So yeah, okay. I don't think position swap is a good idea. That feels pretty bad as well, I think. I don't like that. That's a lot of pressure, you know, like, hey, are you good enough for first pick? Are you good enough to first pick? No, I don't like that idea at all. I'm higher rank, I should first pick. Get out of here, you know, that sort of thing. I don't think that's good. So I don't like the idea of pick order changing. But I do like the idea, you know, first come, first served. Perhaps that could work pretty well. You know, it's in Team League. I think, like I said, with the example, with the Abathur example, you know, I think that's a good example of how hero swaps alongside first come, first served picks is really good as well. But yeah, or like the enemy team drafts some crazy composition, like, oh, we need to pick, you know, a hero like this, like Cassia, to counter what they're doing. Oh, but we've all, the only person who plays Cassia already locked something in. We can't swap, and he can take the Cassia. So yeah, I'd like to see that. You know, we may bring some of these ideas to Unranked Drafts to test. I think that's cool. I'd like to see that maybe tried as well. First come, first served is probably okay as well. I don't see that being a big problem. So yeah, I'm kind of down with those sorts of things. Yeah, I'd like to see some stuff tried here. I think, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hero swaps, though, I would like to see them. Right, new hero balance, then. Received a lot of feedback from players who felt that both Maiev and Phoenix were too powerful on release, and we agree. In the past, many of our hero releases have been considered balanced, or even weaker than they should be. It has happened. You know, people always say, oh, new heroes are always OP. It's not the case. Oftentimes they are. Sometimes they've been underpowered, and then there's a fair few times that they've been pretty balanced. And personally, I would rather heroes be a little bit overpowered than be underpowered when they're first released, because then you actually get to see the hero, and, you know, they get played, and you get to learn the hero. If a hero is released and they suck, it's like they just get ignored, and they don't get played, and it's like they're not even in the game, and that kind of sucks. The newness is good, so I prefer them to be a little bit stronger. But you don't want them to be crazy overpowered. When a new hero is weak, it tends to see minimal competitive and ranked play, which limits how much live hero data we're able to quickly gather and doesn't evolve the metagame. We want new heroes to feel compelling for players at launch. We also want to do that while maintaining the core gameplay balance of HOTS. Continue to work toward... Yeah, okay. Over time, we've developed a cadence of releasing balance updates for new heroes every 2 weeks. This gives us enough time to collect data, allow players to learn how to play with and against the latest editions of the Nexus. Occasionally release a balance update for a new hero outside of this time frame, as we recently did with Maiev, and Zarya even further back. This isn't ideal, it doesn't give the community enough time to actually explore a character's strengths and weaknesses, aside from initial gut reactions. It also means we have to make these decisions with very little data and live play experience. Our goals are to avoid knee-jerk reactions, to give players enough time to learn new heroes, and to gather data before we make any balance adjustments. Now, for me, that's fine, but I was talking about this on stream. I really feel like in these extreme circumstances, like we saw with Phoenix, where it's like, there's no question that the hero is totally overpowered. Like, there's no question. And within a couple of days, within 1 day, it's like, hey, we're seeing 60% win rates on Phoenix across every game mode, across every level of play. He's clearly overpowered, and that is repeated every single day. Like, I really think that a week into this, you should have plenty, like, there should be no doubt. In these extreme cases where a hero is clearly overpowered or clearly underpowered, I don't see any reason why Blizzard can't balance that hero after a week. And now it doesn't even have to be a full balance. It's not saying like, okay, Phoenix he's super busted, 60% win rate. Let's bring him right back down. Boom, 50%, right in the middle, super balanced, great. No, it doesn't have to be that, but even to just bring out some sort of patch within a week that brings them down, I think that would be okay. Now, the Zarya patch was a disaster, if you guys remember. So Zarya was released. Zarya was crazy underpowered. She was like the worst hero in the game. Blizzard came in, gave her some sweeping buffs, like a day or two after, because it's like, oh shit, Overwatch character released, and she sucks. This is really bad. We can't have this. This is ruining a hype and not good PR. So they massively buffed her, and suddenly she became like crazy OP, and that was really obnoxious. I don't think that's good either. I think being like, okay, we'll take a week after hero is released. If they're super OP or super underpowered, we'll give them some cautious buffs or cautious nerfs to bring them a bit more back in line. You know, no radical changes, just some cautious buffs or nerfs. And then, you know, a week later, we'll look at it again, you know, after that full 2-week period, and then we'll give some more comprehensive changes, some deeper changes to bring that hero online. I think that's fair. I think that's achievable. I think that's what should be done. I think it just feels really bad. Like, it didn't bother me too much because we're playing ranked. Phoenix just gets banned every game. But if you're playing quick match, it's like, well, we've got this super busted hero in the game for 2 weeks and there's nothing done about it. That feels silly and that shouldn't be there. So yeah, that's what I think about that. I think they should probably also hotfix bugs. Like, there's a Nova bug. I just did a video on Nova where she has like this crazy interaction between her talents where she can just keep getting snipe resets. And like, it just doesn't feel right. It just shouldn't be a thing. So I like to see that stuff, you know, addressed fairly quickly. Or, you know, when there is an obvious bug, like there's the Kael'thas bug, like that is definitely a bug, to have some sort of system where they can jump in and like be like, okay, this hero is disabled in ranked and team league for the next couple of days. We're working on a hotfix 2 days later, a day later, whatever, as soon as possible. They're like, all right, we found the bug, we fixed the bug, here's a patch, hero's back on. I think that would be great as well. I think having to use a ban, especially until we get this other ban on a hero that's just totally broken and totally overpowered, whether through a bug or balance, that feels kind of silly. So I'd like to avoid that as much as possible. New heroes in ranked. I understand some players in the community would like us to lock new heroes out of ranked modes for a couple of weeks following release. We discussed this internally. Despite this concern, hero leak data is critical for us to fine-tune a hero and hit their 2-week patch timing. Yeah, I like, that's also the thing. Well, I can't imagine they got all that much data from Phoenix, because I played a lot of games streaming. Like, I stream about 5 hours a day every weekday. Now, this is my new schedule. Check it out if you haven't. I played Hero League nearly all of those days for the past, like, during the 2 weeks of Phoenix. I think I saw Phoenix in like 2 or 3 games out of, I don't know, like 100 or more. And he was banned in every other game. So I can't imagine they got all that much data that was that helpful. Certainly for higher levels of play. Omega lol. But yeah, I think it's fine to have new heroes in ranked. That's not an issue for me. If they're super OP, they'll be banned. Again, I'd like to see that though after a week. Tune them down so we might actually get some gameplay of them in ranked. That would be nice. But yeah, I don't have an issue with the hero being in ranked. I think that's fine. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. I'm like, yeah, go for it. I think that's great. And yeah, how are they going to balance a hero if it's in quick match? Which, you know, where it's like, okay, well, Phoenix does seem OP. And he was against like 5 assassins with 5 assassins, you know, and then they change him and then he doesn't work in ranked. You know, that's just silly, in my opinion. I'll talk about that a little bit at the end here. Toxicity and reporting. Toxic behavior will not be tolerated. RAR. Ramping up actions. So working on a new system uses machine learning to help improve the validation of player reports. Our internal testing shows the new system allows us to take action against many times the number of reports than we could using our previous methods, while also maintaining an even higher level of confidence in those actions. Still doing additional tuning, but we expect to be able to roll this new system out in the very future. So, okay, we don't know exactly what that is, but that sounds great. If they're more accurately able to deal with reports, that's fantastic. No one wants feeders or flamers in their games. Repeat offender penalties. Along with the improvements around detecting toxic behavior, we're also revisiting punishments for repeat offenders. Currently, repeated abusive chat penalties result in escalating silence duration. Rather than simply issue players even longer silences, we're going to start escalating penalties from silences to suspensions, even bans, as repeat offenses stack up. Again, I think that's totally fair. Like, you know, everyone has a bad day now and then, and flames now and then. Most people do. That's fine. But it's people that do it all the time and don't stop. That's really bad. Like, someone keeps feeding and they keep feeding and they keep feeding. Like, I mean, like, I think just yesterday on stream, I was like in a match and someone, oh no, I was doing replay coaching and one of the viewers was like, oh yeah, I know 2 of those guys in the enemy teams. Yeah, they're known griefers. And it's like, that's just bad, isn't it? You know, there are people that are known to be like, you know, griefers that just go into the game to troll and to ruin the game for other people. That's really bad. So yeah, people that keep repeating mistakes. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, okay, look, you're being toxic a bunch. Hey, you're gonna get like a silence for a little bit. All right, you're not, okay, that's a warning. You go, okay, great, I've been silenced. I know that I was doing something bad. Silence eventually expires. So you keep going. If you go back to flaming straight away again and you're flaming really badly and all the time, it's just going to be silly to keep silencing that person. They just come back after the silence and keep flaming. I think, you know, eventually suspending or even banning them. Yeah, that's fine with me. I think that's great. And same for feeding and doing that sort of stuff. Non-participation, intentionally dying. Going AFK during a match, leaving matches early, dying intentionally are all behaviors that harm the game and compromise a match. We've been working on ways to address these behaviors while limiting the negative impact they have on others. As part of this endeavor, we're deep into development of a loss forgiveness feature, which will mitigate ranked point deductions for players who lose a game due to another's failure to participate. The leaver will be penalized for the loss, and repeated offenses will result in harsher penalties. The system will initially only forgive losses caused by leavers. We plan to expand it to include AFK players intentionally dying in the future. Yes, I think this is a great idea. It feels really bad. Like, literally the last game on stream I played today, the enemy team had someone that went through the whole draft and then disconnected in the loading screen. Like, their PC crashed, probably. Like, it overheated, it crashed. They never came back. That feels awful when you're on the team. It's happened to me this season as well. You know, I was happy when it happened on the other team. I was like, ha, this like makes up for the games we've lost when people have just not joined the game on our team. But it feels really bad though. It does to lose a game when you've got a leaver, because you're at a huge disadvantage and you're losing just as many points as you would like from a normal loss. So it feels really bad. Like, you work super hard in a game, you play really well, you get a win, you're like, yes. Then you go into the next game, someone leaves the game. Uh-oh, well, there go all my hard-earned points down the drain. So I think it's great to have loss forgiveness for leaver, like when there's a leaver in your game. Touching on this, actually, I've heard some discussion, I've seen a lot of people talking about how the minus 600 points for leaving a game is too harsh. I don't really actually agree with that. I kind of like the 600 points because you don't have people dodge the draft like in Heroes of the Storm. Like, it just doesn't happen. Where it almost never happens, where someone will leave a ranked game because they're like, oh, well, I don't like our team comp, I'm not even going to bother playing. If you make, like, I saw the suggestion that it should be the same as just losing a game. Well, if you lose like 200 points for leaving a game, what's going to happen is someone's going to go, okay, well, I don't like my teammate, I don't like our draft, we're going to lose this anyway, I'm leaving the game. Hey, and then you're 10 minutes in queue and in draft so far, down the drain, back to the start of the queue for you and your team when you maybe would have won the game, you know? So that sucks, you know, it might have been a great game. Well, sorry, 10 minutes down the drain. So I don't think that's good. I'd be cool with like a 400 point penalty, like 2 games. So it's like, all right, yeah, you might lose this game, but do you really want to lose 2 games worth of points? Probably not. So it's better, even if you're not happy with the draft or whatever, to play it. I think that's a good idea. But yeah, I don't think it's a major thing for me personally if it's minus 600 for DCs and leaving the game. I think that's okay in draft or whatever. There's one thing I really noticed when unranked draft came out. Like, after playing ranked, then playing some unranked when it first came out, and I was like, oh my god, like, literally the first day, I tried to queue up for like 4 games in a row, and we just had levers every single time. I was like, this is insane, because it doesn't happen in ranked, because the penalties are so harsh. So there is something to be said for some harsh penalties on that. But yeah, I think that's great. One other thing I'd like to see as well, I'd like to see a report for like unskilled, which is, you know, because this is the thing. This is something I find really difficult. I go into a game and it's like, okay, sometimes like, what's the difference? Certainly a higher level play, I think it can sometimes really hard to say whether a player is like, I think an unskilled report would be good, because sometimes you're like, this player is playing terribly, but I don't know. Right? I don't know if it's an actual good player who is intentionally ruining the game, they're just pissed off and they're trolling us, they're griefing us, or if it's just like a weaker player, because going back to the matchmaking stuff at the start of the game, you can go from like having a GM number 1 to having like someone who was diamond last season. You know what I mean? You can get that in this, like within 2 games of each other. It's like, I don't know if this person is intentionally doing something bad, or if they're just, you know, they're just not that skilled. They just don't know. So I'd like to have like an unskilled report in the game personally myself, so that's like when you're frustrated, I'm like, Blizzard doesn't have to ban people for it, I don't want that, but to collect data, you know, at least use it to collect data and be like, okay, you know, we find that when there's this big of an MMR gap, you know, that suddenly the unskilled reports go way through the roof. So we'll adjust our matchmaking queue based off of that, because it can feel bad sometimes. You're like, you know, this player, like, they're dying all the time. Are they inting though? Are they intentionally dying? Are they trying to troll your game? Like, sometimes you might report them for that because they died loads, but it's like, they're just, you know, they're just not, they're just, the matchmaking's not being very kind and they're in a really tough game. I think that would help. And again, I don't think, because it's obviously the rage report, right? It's when you're like super tilted, you're like, report you for unskilled. I think that would actually be helpful to have in the game, though. I'm curious what you guys think about that. Then the final thing was communication. One of the challenging parts about combating toxicity is most of the action happens behind the scenes. It can seem like nothing's being done. A few months ago, we started sending emails to players when the reports of non-participating or intentionally dying players led to actions being taken against the offender's account. Eventually, we want to bring these notifications in-game where they'll be more visible. In the meantime, we're going to increase visibility for the suspension and ban waves we issue by bolstering our broader communications. Something we've done sporadically in the past. We're moving to a more constant cadence going forward. So yeah, I'm pretty cool with that as well. Having it more clear when reports actually lead to something, I think feels good. You're like, okay, so I was playing ranked today, and we had this guy who just flamed all game in chat, 3 games in a row, and he fed like 10 deaths in a row to the enemy team, and we got stomped every single time. This feels awful. Report this guy. Feels really good. Then you come back the next day and it's like, yes, okay, we've taken action against this guy. Yes, lost forgiveness. This guy was feeding, he was trolling those games. We're going to give you some points back because you guys were griefed. I think that would feel really nice, and that would definitely improve the whole experience. So yeah, I feel really good about that. In terms of a couple of other things I'd add on that I might like to see myself. Number one, I'd be interested in seeing perhaps some longer seasons. I think I read Moonfair had a post on this earlier. I think you made a very good point, which is that oftentimes for higher levels, it feels certainly like you spend as much time, if not more time sometimes, grinding the ladder to get to like a high rank than you do spend playing at that rank, because the seasons are so short. And it also kind of rewards, I think it does encourage kind of an attitude of, oh, well, I'll get to the rank I want for my reward at the end of the season, and then I'll probably stop playing. Whereas if the seasons are a bit longer, it gives you longer to spend at your appropriate rank after you've like grounded out, and then you can kind of enjoy playing at that and kind of get used to that. I think that would be good. One other thing I'd really like to see is for them to make the higher leagues smaller. Right, it's something I probably should have got some comparisons for you guys. But if you compare like League of Legends, the size of the amount of players that are in each league, and then you compare it to Heroes of the Storm, Heroes of the Storm is much more generous with its higher levels. Right, it's much like they let more people into like Master and Diamond than you do in those other games, and I don't think that's good. Because again, for me, it's tied in. This fixes it somewhat, but I think you get a new player. They play a bunch with their friends. They kind of like raffle stomp some quick match. They spam a bunch of Phoenix when he's released in quick match. They win a whole bunch of games, and then they place into Diamond in Hero League. That player just sits back. It's like, hey, I'm the hot shit, man. I'm Diamond. Look at me. I'm great. I really don't think that's good. I really don't think that's good because, and then they're going into the games and they're losing the games for their team because they don't understand rotations. They don't understand all the strategic stuff. They don't actually understand. And then they're flaming their teammates. It just brings all this toxicity and negativity in. Whereas I think if, players are placed lower down and it's like, yeah, then there's impetus to climb. You're like, hey, okay, I placed it. Like, this is good. I placed Platinum 5. All right, well, I want to improve. I want to get better. It also makes, I think Kendrick had a great post on this talking about this as well. Add more prestige to like Platinum and Diamond and Master and Grandmaster. Have more prestige there, because it's like they don't feel super prestigious at the moment because it's quite easy to get in there, with a Smurf or something. Like, it's quite easy to get there, which is just silly. And players fall down then over time, of course, because they don't belong there. But it doesn't feel good. So I think making those leagues smaller, making Bronze, Silver, and Gold a bit bigger, and again, having that rank decay then for those higher leagues, I think that would be really good. So that, when you get your Platinum ranks, when you get Diamond, when you get Master, GM, you actually feel really good about it. And then because they're smaller as well, it's like there's better players in there, right? Like have current Diamond be Platinum, have like half of current Master be Diamond, and then Master, and then GM. Like the top half of Master be Master, and then GM be GM. Something like that. And then you got better players in those ranks. So you're like, oh yeah, I got into my Master level game. We're going to have a great game here. Like players are going to play really well. It's going to be fantastic. And players are going to be wanting to improve, which I don't know that you always get at the moment. So that's kind of one of my thoughts on that one. And yeah, potentially of having like more placement matches the first time you go into it, having longer seasons, but no need really for placement matches. between seasons if you're an experienced player at all. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think of this blog post in general? Any thing that you would add? Any feedback that you have? I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think as well. So yeah, there you go. I think it's really interesting. And I just saw this at the end here, that there's going to be an AMA on Reddit tomorrow at 10 a.m. PDT, which is pretty early on. So I'll try for 2 hours. So I'll try to give you guys some coverage of that as well if I can. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you next time for some more Here's the Storm. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.